Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make a fairly easy Loomigurumi Hershey kiss. So I have several different ones here. I made a pink and purple metallic, and you can see I'm going to show you how to do the little tag with bands, but if you wanted to, you could also take one out of a real Hershey kiss. Unfortunately, I didn't have a plain one, but I had an almond one, so I took the paper out of that. And then I did one with gray bands. And then the one I'm going to show you in the tutorial today, I actually used brown for the chocolate. And then I just put some tinfoil around to make the little wrapping. So I'll just take that off so you can see what it looks like without. To make your Hershey kiss, you're going to need a hook of some sort, so I'm using the Rainbow Loom metal hook, and I'm using a twist tie to help me get my magic ring started. So that's optional, but I do find it very helpful. You're going to need some type of stuffing, just a small amount, so I have polyfill. And then you're going to need a few clips or stitch markers. And then as far as your band counts go, you're going to need 94 bands for whatever you want your main color to be. So I have brown. And then if you want to make a little tag out of rubber bands, you're going to need 8 white. I'm going to begin by making the base. So for that I have 6 bands. So we're going to start with a magic ring of 5. And I'm using a twist tie to help me get my magic ring started. So this is optional, but I do find it very helpful. And then I have a clip that I'm going to use as a stitch marker. So if you do have that twist tie, just put it right next to your hook. And then you're going to take your first band and triple this. So it just goes on, twist, back on, twist, and then back on. And then you just pull your twist tie up about halfway and bend it in half. So that's just going to give you something to hold on to, and it's going to keep those 3 loops together. If you don't have a twist tie, you'll just have to use your fingers to grab those 3 loops. So now you should have 5 bands left, and we're just going to pull them through one at a time. So through, back on, you'll have 2 loops, one through the other, and then we're always going front to back. So push back through those 3 loops, pull through your second, back on, you'll have 3 loops, the end through the other 2. Through again, this is my third, fourth, and fifth. So now I can remove my twist tie. I'm going to take my clip, add it to the band that's on my hook, and I'm just going to take a second and spread these out and try and get them evenly spaced around the circle. In the second and final row of our base, you're going to need 10 bands, and it's going to be an increase in every stitch. So you can see I have them laid out in piles of 2. So let me just show you what I mean by a stitch. It's this little sideways V that's on the outside edge of your magic ring. So you're always going to be pushing under both loops from front to back, and we're doing 2 in each stitch. So same as before, it just goes through, back on, one through the other 2, back through that same stitch for your increase. And we're just going to do that the whole way around. So at the end of this section, we're going to have a stitch count of 10. And then that's going to complete the base. So here's my second one in this stitch. And now there's my last one. It's always going to be where your clip is. So there's 1 and 2. So then just take your clip or stitch marker and just move it to the band that's on your hook. And then you want to just take a second and sort of flatten this out. Next, I'll show you how to make the little paper part. So if you're doing it out of loom bands, you're going to need 8 white bands. So you're taking your first one and quadrupling that on your hook. So you're just twisting and putting it back on until you have 4 loops. You're going to push that down to the base and you're going to double your next band. Slide that to the top. And then you're going to very carefully grab the 4 loops, pull that up and over the top. Just make sure you're grabbing all 4. And then the remaining 2 that are in your fingers just go back on. So I always like to try and straighten these out after I put every one on. Again, here we're doubling. And I like to just twist this around, pull it out and up, and then slide that back down and get the other 2 loops. You can see only 1 got on there. So you're just going to do that for the remaining bands. I think it gets a little bit easier as it gets longer because you have something to grab onto. So it looks like we have 3 more here. If you hear any noise in the background, it's my heat pump. It's actually very cold here today, so it can get kind of noisy where I do my filming. So that makes 8. So then what I'm going to do is to take a clip and I'm going to just put it through here. It's going to be a little tight because you have a bunch of bands. Just going to put my clip through and put this off to the side for a moment. In the top section, we're going to start with a magic ring of 4. So for that, I have 5 bands. So I will be using a twist tie to get my magic ring started, and I will be attaching the little tag on one of the bands as well. So we're just going to triple the first band, and then bend it in half, and we have 4 bands left here to pull through. So I have 1, back through, 2, 3, and now on this last one here I'm going to attach my paper piece. So I'm going to go through the center, and now I'm going to take this white piece here. I'm going to get all of the 4 loops to go on my hook. So I'm just going to slide these on, and you may want to take note with the way that this is angling. It usually has a little bit of an arc to it, and if you picture this as the top, you probably want to put it on this way as opposed to this way. Really, it's just a matter of choice, but I'm going to have mine arc sort of downward a little bit. So I'm just going to go through all 4 of those white loops and take out my clip. And then I'm going to take my band, and it's just going to go through those 4 whites. Whoops, I'm hung up here. There we go. And then it's going to pull through the middle and then get the other end of the brown back on, and one through the other 2. And so now it's attached. And then I can take my center out here, and I'm going to take my clip and attach it to the band that's on my hook. In row 2, we're doing an increase in every other stitch, so it's a 1 2 1 2 pattern. So we do have a rather small magic ring here, so you do want to make sure that you kind of have these all spread apart. This is the top, so I want to make sure that they're spread around the circle here. And it might be a little bit of a longer stretch here to make it under your first stitch. So you're just reaching across here, and we're doing a single to start. Whoops, I just lost my clip, but I'll pick that up then. So in the second stitch here, we're doing an increase. So I have one, and back through for a second. And if you feel like your stitches are really closing in and you're having a hard time, don't hesitate to just kind of spread this apart. So over here is my third. I have a single. And then one more here. I feel like this stitch is a little bit smaller just because we have this attached and it's taking up some extra room. We're doing an increase. Normally that's where my clip would have been, but since it popped off, can't see that. So my increase, and I'm going to add the clip. In row 3, you'll need 9 bands, and we're still doing an increase in every other stitch. So once again, if you feel like you don't have a good view here, let me just get my clip on the other side. You can always just stretch this apart so you can get a better view of all of your stitches. So I'm going under the first one here, and we have a single. Second one gets an increase. And then we're just going to keep repeating that pattern. So here's my last set of the pattern. I have a single, and where my clip is my increase. So we're just going to gradually start to widen this. So again, you can spread these stitches out and see how it's starting to look at the tip here. You'll need 12 bands for row 4, and we're doing an increase in every third stitch. So you can see we have a 1 1 2 pattern. So there's one in the next, and then your increase. Just going to repeat that 2 more times. So I think this one is actually fairly easy to do. And I think it's a nice fun one because you can experiment with all different colors for the wrappers. Here's my last set of the pattern. So I lost that there. In row 5, you'll need 15 bands, and we're doing an increase in every 4th stitch. So it's 3 singles. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then in the 4th one we're doing an increase. And then you're just going to repeat that 2 more times. So this is actually the largest that our little kiss is going to get. And we really only have 1 more row to do after this. So you're almost done. Here's my last set of the pattern. So you can see how we're doing here. In row 6, you'll need 15 bands. It's just 1 single crochet into each stitch. So since it's pretty simple, I'm going to go ahead and let you pause the video here and do this row on your own. The last thing that we need to do is to add our stuffing and to stitch these 2 pieces together. So I have a total of 15 bands for that. So as far as the stuffing here, I have my polyfill, and you want to stuff it relatively full so it holds its shape, but not so full that you're showing it in between the stitches. I think I may just take a little bit out here. Every time you work with this, it's kind of a little bit of a pain to try and keep the stuffing from getting caught in between your bands. And then we have our base piece here. So I'm going to attach this so I have what I'm calling the right side facing me. And I'm considering this the wrong side. It really doesn't matter which way. I think when you have the right side facing you, even when you flatten it out, it tends to sort of stick a little bit up. So I'm having that facing outward. And I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to go through this part first. So from the outside, I'm going to go to the next stitch over from where my clip is here, where my loose band is. I'm going to go around to the next stitch in a clockwise direction. And I'm going to stick my hook through the 2 loops. Then I'm going to take my loose band and get that on my hook and remove my clip. So I'm just attaching this the way that it would normally be going if we were working our way around. And that's actually going to count as a stitch. It's going to be our 10th stitch in this base. And then I'm going to pick up the main part here. And this is going to be going around in a counterclockwise direction, the way that we have been forming it. I'm going to go through the loose band first because I want these 2 loose bands to be sandwiched like in the middle so they're not poking out. And then I'm going to the next stitch over and pushing through. So here's what it should look like. You're going to take your first band, it's going to pull through everything. So try not to get your stuffing caught up there. I'm going to go through the stitch, through the first loose band, through the next loose band, and through the other stitch. Get the other end back on that I was holding in my fingers. And you could always attach a clip. If you feel like you're having a hard time to hold this, you could always attach a clip to the end just to give you something more to grip onto. So you have your 2 loops and one will pull through the other. And if you've noticed, our base has a stitch count of 10 and the outside part has a stitch count of 15. So what that means is in every other stitch on the base, we're going to have to go through 1 stitch twice. So I'm moving over to my next stitch here, and this is actually the stitch that we created by attaching. So I'm going to push through that and then move over to the next stitch. So again, I'm pulling through everything. This is a little bit different. You're always pulling through everything. Back on, you're always going to have 2 loops, one through the other. So here's where I'm going to go through the same stitch on the base, and I'm going to move over to the next stitch on the outer part. So this is how we're going to make sure we have something in every stitch by doing that increase, or it's not really an increase, but going through the same stitch twice, one through the other. So now I can move over to my next stitch on the base, next stitch on the outside, pull through everything, next stitch on the base, next stitch on the outside. I can see a little bit of stuffing sticking through, but that's okay. Now here, this is one of my every other stitches, so I'm going through the same stitch on the base, next stitch on the body, and pull through. So if you see any kind of stuffing that pokes through, you can try and pull it out. Sometimes when you do that, more pieces come out than what you want. And you can always keep just pushing this down in until it gets closed off. So over to the next one on the base, then the body. Next one on the base, next one on the body, and now the same one on the base, and the next one over, I actually see a really long piece of fuzz that's bothering me. So the next one on the base is our single. Next one, we're going to have 2. So it looks like we have 3 left here. Now at this point, if you feel like it's not quite full enough and you want to add any more stuffing or anything like that, now would be your chance to do that. But remember, you don't want to overstuff it, so I think this is good. And also, it's going to sort of curve under. That's why I wanted a smaller base, because if I would have had each be 15, it would really puff out at the end. And a real Hershey Kiss sort of is plump and rounded at the edge. That's why I wanted to make it sort of tuck under just a bit. So onto the next one here. So that's 1. And then here's my last one on the base. And I should have 2 left on the side. We have 1. And here's my last one. And then I'm going to take 1 additional band. I'm going to go back to the start here, go under like 1 or 2 loops. And I'm going to pull through everything and make a really nice and tight slip knot. And then I just have to hide this loop. So I'm going to do that on the underside here. Really doesn't matter where. And then your little Hershey kiss is complete. So if you want to do any kind of adjusting, as I said, I sort of like this to go up inside just a little bit to take the edges and just round them off. Again, if you have any kind of stuffing, you can try and get that out. And you can play around with the top here, try and get that nice and pointy, and get that nice shape of a Hershey kiss. So I think it turned out perfect. And if you've made a chocolate one, a little naked one without its wrapper, if you wanted to give it as a little gift or something, you could always take a piece of tin foil and cut out a square and then just wrap it up the way that a real Hershey kiss would be. So I think I cut it a little bit big here, but you would want to try and shape it so it takes the shape of the kiss here. So that's just another cute little idea. I hope that everyone loves their new Loomigurumi Hershey Kisses. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook. You can post pictures of what you've made on my Facebook page. I love to see everyone's creations. And you can feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well and post your pictures and comments there too. Thanks for watching!